Yesterday, I showed you a pass-along plant. It was a crocosmia, and it's up by my little church birdhouse. It's one of my favorite pictures that I've taken this summer is of that. Here, the person who gave me that crocosmia also gave me this coral honeysuckle. This is another pass-along plant. And she gave it to me a year ago, and it's taken a full year for it to reach this height and begin to move across this arbor. Yesterday, I was talking to my niece, and she asked me how I liked the fact that I had moved back to Mississippi. Of course, she's been in Mississippi well, actually, she lives in Georgia now, so in fact, she told me it's taken her a while to adjust to being out of state, but I told her it had taken me a year. I mean, I was coming back to a place that I lived for 35 years. So, but I'm not to the same town. But the people in the same town where I lived, I mean, that platform has changed. In fact, this makes me think of a book that we're going to do in Looking Let Look Homeward, or was it Homeward Bound? Or Look Homeward, not Thomas Wolfe, but talks about you can never go home again. Maybe that's I don't know what the name of it is, but I read it. I just have to read it again. But anyway, and it's the truth. You cannot ever go back home again. For one thing, home didn't stay there. So in my little hometown, definitely didn't stay. It became a ghost town. People aren't there. They moved out. My parents are both dead and gone. My hometown is not my home anymore. But it's still that memories of my home and of my childhood still nourish me, still propel me. Yesterday I showed you the little room behind this wall of morning glory vines. This is one side of an arch that I established early maybe January or February, March, early spring, and I've put raised beds around it, and inside it there is see, it's right beside this little morning coffee chair. In fact, I decided that I'm going to name my morning coffee, my going to outside and writing in the morning, not morning pages, but morning coffee. Morning pages sounds like drudgery. Morning coffee sounds so much better, because my first jaunt into my garden, my first writing about my garden and my life and with and around and in my garden is not drudgery. It's a privilege. It's a privilege. I work hard to create the garden that I have, and I create it for several reasons. One of it is to have this space, my morning coffee chair, as I call it, my place that I can go every day. But I come out here more than in the morning. My morning is my first and main trip out here, because this is when I start elaborating upon and thinking about and ruminating about my day. But anyway, I'm walking into or up to the threshold or the door that's created by this big arch into my garden room, which I told you yesterday I need to work on it. But see that? I went in last night. In fact, maybe it was, I think it was this, no, I think it was last night that I realized why I was doing this. I've had this need or this desire to create a garden room like this for a long time, and I'll readily admit it's not quite there yet. But why? There's a reason. And it goes back to my childhood, back to that hometown that's no longer there. But it is there. The hometown that the place where I once lived, that town has changed in every way except in my mind. And when I was a child, I know what I'm doing here. When I was a child, my parents had a huge weeping willow tree in their backyard. I mean, I'm talking massive. It had to be 30 feet tall and 30 feet wide. And the branches bent down and touched the ground. And when I was a little bitty girl, I would crawl inside that space, crawl it into the little house that was created by the branches of the weeping willow, and I would sit there. What was I doing? I was probably retreating or escaping. I was thinking. I was being alone but protected. I told you yesterday that I want to make this. Next year I'm going to move the morning glory vines to this wall over here, so that I will be able to look through the windows. I'll still have my roses growing here on this side, but I'll be able to look through the windows that are created and see outside like I did when I was a child. I'll be a child protected inside my little house with the opportunity and the option to look out how much and how often I wanted to and see what was on the other side. Milk and honey on the other side. And that's what I do when I write memoir. I go back to that home. I go back to that womb-like experience of my childhood, and I crawl inside that womb-like experience, and I look out at the world that I have now, and I reflect. I do that every time I write. I believe that, because I don't want to escape it. William Faulkner said the past isn't past. The past really isn't even the past. Or something like that. I think the past isn't dead. It's not even past. Something like that. And that's the way I feel about my childhood. My childhood is the energy and the thought and the reflection upon which I build the rest of my creative life. I've said this already, but in November is memoir writing month, and I hope to provide a full-scale memoir writing workshop that month. I think I've started it 2 or 3 times, and I continue to work on it. I call that workshop Harvest Your Past, and that's exactly what I do. There are things about my past that I don't really crave and don't want to celebrate, but by and large, it's the food, it's the energy upon which I build the rest of my art. I harvest my fast all the time. And I hope that you'll learn to do that too.